Hey everyone, it's Lexi. So in today's video I'll be sharing with you all the books that I read this March in addition to the books that I plan on reading this April. And you can tell from the sparse background and the suitcases and boxes over here that we're in the process of moving. I'll have a video dedicated to the moving process and everything kind of behind the scenes stuff, but we are moving in 1 week from today. So it worked out timing wise that I can film this, but I've already kind of packed a lot of my stuff here. But yeah, definitely will bring you guys along for the ride. And overall, March was a really great reading month despite being really busy in the beginning of the month. I was in Chicago for a conference, and then we bought a house, and then I came back from Montreal, and then it's been just packing like crazy basically. So despite it being a very busy month, I was able to get a lot of reading done, and I think that's because too I've kind of rediscovered my love for audiobooks. I re-listened to one audiobook which I'll talk about, and then I really prefer nonfiction audiobooks. I think it's just easier for me to kind of do other things, and I don't have to really focus heavily. So there's a couple nonfiction audiobooks in here, but when I'm packing I'll just be listening to my audiobook, and that's what I've been enjoying doing. And also on my drive home from Montreal to where we live was nine and a half hours, so the audiobook kept me thoroughly entertained. And yeah, all these books are kind of all over in terms of genre too, so without further ado, let's get started. Starting up, I first read The Winman by Kristin. I was so excited to pick this book up. She is definitely one of my favorite authors, and I was just really excited for her newest release. I've always loved, I feel like most of her books I've read and I've enjoyed most of them, so this one I had high expectations going in. But we follow Frankie, who ends up joining the kind of military during Vietnam War. She lives in the United States, and she ends up becoming a combat nurse basically. And so we follow her journey of her enlisting, her time in Vietnam, and also readjusting to life after Vietnam. And this book was really difficult to read, not because it was not written well, but because of the subject matter. The author Kristin does not shy away from writing kind of and not sugarcoating what is going on, but actually writing the grim side of war. And this book does tackle with kind of subject matter related to war, injuries, and PTSD. And this book was incredibly moving. It didn't make me cry, but I did get teary-eyed for a few parts here or there. But it was definitely really, really moving. I'm just looking at my notes here. It talks about the traumas of war, coming of age, and I really like too how this book focused on the kind of forgotten story of the women who were part of the war effort, and how in general this war was when people came back home was not talked about. People were not happy with this war, and how women were kind of shoved under the rug and amongst all this other political drama related to this war. And it was just really well done, incredibly moving, and you can't just help but really feel for what Frankie's going through. But like I said, there's a few trigger warnings, so I would look at those before. But yeah, this book was really phenomenal. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. Next, we're moving on to the audiobooks that I listened to on my drive home from Montreal. The first up was The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. This was a reread for me. I read this right around the time last year when I was preparing for my dissertation defense, and it was just an incredibly stressful time, but the Folk of the Air trilogy, and then this book in particular, really kind of helped me relax and decompress around that really stressful time. So I knew I wasn't at my highest brain capacity at that point, just with all the stress and just not sleeping well because of preparing for my dissertation defense. So I was like, you know what, I will, even though I have my notes, I will just kind of listen to the audiobook just to kind of see. But I really enjoyed it. Like I said, this is a fun series. I feel like it kind of really takes a lot of what I like about Fae stories and compile it. I think also too because I read the Spiderwick Chronicles as a kid, and these Holly Black was one of the authors, so kind of that feeling that I had with their kind of folklore vibes was kind of transferred to here, and it's just a fun read. I really enjoyed it, and kind of rereading it again, there are things that I completely forgot about, so I'm really happy that I did listen to the audiobook, and it kept me thoroughly entertained. So I give this one again a 4 out of 5 stars. And then kind of moving on to the nonfiction audiobooks that I listened to, I first listened to The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs, and then also, because I enjoyed that so much, I listened to The Rise and Reign of the Mammals. And this kind of like helped, this kind of like searched and found my little paleontologist nerd heart that I had as a kid. Like when I was little, I wanted to be a paleontologist. I was obsessed with dinosaurs, but then I realized I, burn pretty bad in the sun, and I don't like being in the dirt, and I'm not one who really enjoys like physical labor. So I kind of helped nurture that feeling for like kind of fossils when I did my double major in biomedical engineering and anthropology, because I was just so interested in human evolution and learning all that stuff. So this, I think if you really wanted to be like a paleontologist, or you were obsessed with dinosaurs, or you're just interested in evolution, I think these two books were really good to read. I think this author does a really good job at writing this, so it doesn't feel like a textbook. Like he writes it in a way that I think is very engaging for people who may not have any like paleo anthro background, and it makes it very accessible for the masses, which I really appreciate. There's some humor intermixed with this, but I think he really kind of approaches and talks about this material in a way that is very digestible, and it was a really fun read. Like this was the audiobook that I listened to the majority of my ride home, specifically the dinosaur one, and the mammals ones I've been listening to whilst packing. And I just learned so much about dinosaurs. Like I came home and I just was like spouting out random dinosaur facts and all this stuff, and it was really a lot of fun because I had The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs on my shelf for a while, but I never got around to reading it. So I'm happy I really picked this one up, because really it was a lot of fun. I gave both a 4 out of 5 stars. I think I liked the dinosaur one a little bit more. The mammal stuff was interesting, but a lot of the stuff, because I did do human evolution, I have a degree in like evolutionary anthropology, that type of stuff, that I knew kind of a lot of the stuff, but I still found it really, thought-provoking and engaging. So if you're looking for a nonfiction read, I highly recommend you check these audiobooks out. Next up, I ended up reading The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick, and this is a book that I have very mixed feelings about. It is the last of my like big chonker books that I brought with me to Montreal to read, and this book was very intense. I have mixed feelings. There's things that I really loved and hated about this book, and I'll kind of delve more into that in a little bit. But basically the premise of the story is to follow Ren, who has come to this city of City of Dreams is basically what it's called, and she basically tries to con her way into this rich family's lives. So we follow her on this heist while there's a lot of other like political intrigue and other issues going on. And there were parts of this, like I said, that I really enjoyed, and parts of it that I didn't like. And like I said, I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars. I think I will continue on with the series, but it was just a little too intense for me. I did find this review on Goodreads that I'll read to you that I think articulates it a lot better than what I could, but I think it just does a much better job at explaining the kind of problems that I had with this book in particular. So it says, the complexity of the book is one of the reasons I enjoyed it, but it was also why I struggled. Every single thing in this book is named with a proper noun. Places they visit, every minor character, every faction, every family, all of it had specific names. I couldn't keep track of what I was supposed to be remembering and what was irrelevant, especially when you mix in characters being referred to as either their first name, family name, title, or secret identity. There were so many named characters I struggled to remember them usually, let alone when they have 3 or 4 names. Sometimes large events would happen, and I'd be so caught up by trying to understand what was going on, I missed major parts. I managed to completely miss a character death because I couldn't figure out what was happening. And yeah, I agree. Like there are parts of this that I really enjoyed, but they'll be like referring to some characters by their last name, but there'll be 2 major characters and you don't know which one they're referring to when they're doing the last name. And there was a lot of weird kind of just, made up language kind of thrown into here that made it very confusing to read. Like I had a hard time grasping what was going on. Like I said here, like I completely missed a character's death because there's just so much stuff going on and so much made up language, and it was just hard to keep track of. Like, even there's like weird like names, and even just like with the kind of like glossary and like character traits in here, it was a little too confusing. And having like, I looked at the back of the authors, and they are archaeological people, so they are archaeologists, and I like, once I read that, I'm like, it makes sense, because this was a little too, I think, out there in terms of complexity. I enjoyed the ending, and I think I will continue on with this series, but I do need to be in the right mindset, and I've heard it does get better, but there was just too much jargon that I think took away from what was going on here. And for the most part, like, nothing really happens until like the last 100 pages or so. So this is like a 600-page book. So I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. I think I will continue on with this series, but I need to be in the right mindset. So like I said, I can see the potential, and I've heard that it does get better, but there was things that I liked, things that I didn't like, and it was just kind of mixed for me. And lastly, I ended the month on a good note, and I ended up reading The Prisoner's Throne by Holly Black. This is the newest book in like the Oak Wren duology, and I love this book. I read it fairly quickly, actually. Like, I just like flew through it. I finished it in a couple sittings. I was just totally invested in it. Like I said, there's something about these books in particular that really helped me get through my like dissertation stress, and they're just fun to read. And this one I felt like it was a really good conclusion. I liked how this time around we get to see Oak's perspective, because the first book is told from Wren's perspective, and I don't want to talk too much about the plot in this one because it is connected. So I do think you need to read the original like Cruel Prince trilogy to order to pick this up, because the characters in the Cruel Prince, although they are referenced in the first book, The Stolen Heir, they all kind of come together in this one. But I really enjoyed it. I loved the twists and turns. I love seeing the character development in the between Wren and Oak in particular, and just the political intrigue and the conniving and the backstabbing and everything. And the ending was super fun and intense. So I really enjoyed it. Like I said, these books are just really fun, and I don't know, there's something special about them. So I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think there'll be kind of another spin-off series that was kind of somewhat alluded to in this one. So I'm very excited to be able to, again, be thrust into this world. And finally, I'll talk about the books that I plan on reading in April. They're kind of all over the place, and I do have like a fairly large TBR this time around, but there's definitely a few new releases that I'm really excited about, and audiobooks that I will be listening to. The first audiobook that I am currently listening to that will be my moving listen is 21 Lessons for the 21st Century by Yuval Noah Harari. This is another nonfiction book that I have on my shelf that I haven't got to yet, but it basically talks about, if you've read like Sapiens or Homo Deus, he is the author that talks about like the cultural anthropology and how humans evolved to where we are now in terms from a cultural standpoint. So in this book, he talks about different things that can have a big impact on humans going forward, specifically integrating like AI into our society, the kind of, you know, fallout from the 2016 election and Brexit and like these type of things. So he's talking about how like technology and all these other things can have an impact on us, and what we can do in order to be kind of careful around these things. So I'm about a third of the way through this one. Like I said, I'll probably finish it next week in amongst all of the packing. But yeah, I really enjoy it. It's just a lot of fun, and like I said, it just, you know, gives me something to do. Like, if you give me an audiobook and some tape and boxes, like, I'm having the time of my life. So this is the audiobook that I'll probably be listening to this month. And this is a book that I am currently reading right now, and I have the dust jacket because the book's downstairs, but it is Still Life by Sarah Winman. This is a book that I am very intrigued by, and it's been on my shelf for a while, so I've been like, we're gonna pick this one up now. And it just sounds really intriguing. It follows these two people at the end of World War II, where they have a chance encounter, and that kind of exchange has made a tremendous impact on their lives several decades down the road. And so I just started this one about 40-ish pages in, and we'll see how it goes. Like I said, the first part was a little bit tricky. This author does the stylistic choice where they decide not to use quotations when characters are talking, and even right off the bat it's hard to tell if the character is like talking to another character or like talking to us essentially. So I don't like that stylistic choice. That's why I did not like The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. So we'll see how this one goes, but we'll see. I've heard like mixed things. People either really love it or they're kind of in the middle of the road. So I'm very curious to see. But let's say if I'm like 150 pages in and I'm just not feeling it, there is a possibility that I will DNF this one, but we'll see. We'll see. This one's a bit of a challenge. I don't like that stylistic choice of no quotation marks, because I'm like, if I turned in like a short story for school, I would be graded like marked off for not using quotations. So I don't understand the stylistic choice of doing that. If you guys know, let me know in the comments below, but like I hate that. So we'll see. I'm kind of on the fence on this one right now, but we'll see how it goes. So next, these are two books that are coming out this month. The first one is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. This one I believe comes out April 9th, and I'm excited to dive into this one. I like don't want to really know too much about this. I kind of just want to dive in, but it's kind of giving me like gothic vibes, and I know this one is kind of a little bit stronger on the romance, so I'm very curious to see how I feel about this one. But again, because a lot of times if it's an author that I know, I don't really like to know too much of the plot. I just like to dive right in. So that is my plan for this one. And the other new release that I have on hold at the library, hopefully I'll be one of the first people to get it, is Funny Story by Emily Henry. And I believe this one is where two people who are in a relationship, their significant others end up breaking up with them in order so they can be together. So in order to get revenge, the people that were dumped end up pretending to be there in a relationship together, and it kind of goes off from there. I have been enjoying Emily Henry's work a little bit more. Like, I didn't really enjoy Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation, was just fine, but I did love Book Lovers and Funny Story, so I'm hoping I'm going to be liking this one as well. A lot of her books are kind of hit or miss, so I'm very curious to see how I feel about this one. But it just seems kind of like it's giving me kind of the proposal vibes in like a good way. Next up, this seems like a nice spring book, and it is Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries. I picked this one up at my local bookstore when I came back home from Montreal, but it just seems like fun and cutesy and like a nice spring read, and it's not too long, so I think it'll be a lot of fun. But it says, Cambridge professor Emily Wilde is good at many things. She is the foremost expert on fairies. She is a genius scholar and a meticulous researcher who is writing the world's first encyclopedia of fairy lore. But Emily is not good at people. She could never make small talk at a party or even get invited to one, and she prefers the company of her books and her dog and the fair folk to other people. So when she arrives to the hardscrabble village of, I'm not even going to bother pronouncing this, Emily has no intention of befriending the gruff townfolk, nor does she care to spend time with another new arrival, her dashing and insufferably handsome academic rival, Wendell, who manages to charm the townfolk, muddle Emily's research, and utterly confound and frustrate her. But as Emily gets closer and closer to uncovering the secrets of the hidden ones, the most elusive of all fairies, lurking in the shadowy forest outside the town, she also finds herself on the trail of another mystery. Who is Wendell, and what does he really want? I've heard this one is just really fun and really cute and a nice kind of like enemies to lovers type of romance. So this one I felt like was just a nice fun spring read, especially kind of looking at this cover here. This is a historical fiction that I've heard nothing but great things about, and I'm really excited to dive right in, and it is Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. And this one follows kind of a dual storyline where we follow one woman in the early 1900s who ends up becoming this famous pilot who ended up becoming missing on one of her flights, and then we follow this kind of Hollywood socialite who will be playing this famous kind of pilot in a movie, and this is her kind of last chance to kind of, you know, like help her career, and the two kind of storylines, you know, parallel each other in a way. But like I said, I've heard great things about this one. It just seems like it will be just really incredibly moving is what I've heard, so I'm really excited to dive into this one. Like I said, I've heard nothing but great things, and who knows, it might make me cry. And I've been trying to get back into historical fiction, so this is one that just seems really intriguing, and it is Codename Helene by Ariel Lawhon. So it says, in 1936, Nancy is an Australian expat living in Paris. She has bluffed her way into the reporting job for a Hearst newspaper when she meets wealthy French industrialist Henry. No sooner does Henry sweep Nancy off her feet and convince her to become his wife, then the Germans invade France and she takes yet another name, a code name. Told in an interweaving timeline organized around the 4 codenames Nancy used during the war, codename Hélène follows Nancy's transformation from journalist to one of the most powerful leaders in the French resistance, known for her ferocious wit, her signature red lipstick, and her ability to summon weapons straight from the Allied forces. So this one just seems a lot of fun. I always like kind of the resistance kind of spy underground network type of historical fictions, specifically around World War II. So I think this one just seems like it'll be a lot of fun. And like I said, I've been trying to get back into my original roots of kind of reading more historical fiction. So I'm hoping between Great Circle and this, that will kind of help. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what books you plan on reading this month and all of that fun stuff. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next time in my new filming location. So bye, guys.